Morning, everyone. We are going to start in about 30 seconds. So if you want to grab your cup of coffee, you can do so now. And good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Standing Committee meeting of the Standing Committee on Community Safety in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. My name is Gillian Bosman, and I am the chair of this committee. A very warm welcome to our colleagues joining us from the South African Police Service, led by Lieutenant General Patekile. For the record, I'm now going to ask that all members of the Western Cape Standing Committee please introduce themselves, and then we'll hand over to General Patekile and his team to introduce themselves.
Good morning, Dan Plato.
Good morning, Chairperson Phil Christians.
Good morning, Chairperson Mesuli Kama.
Good morning, Deirdre Bartman.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Can I now hand over to our colleagues at the South African Police Service?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning to the members. I'm Lieutenant General Patekile. With me, I've got two Deputy Provincial Commissioners and Provincial Head Vispol. I'll start with Major General Minley, who is the Deputy for Policing, and Major General Foskey, who is the Deputy Provincial Community Support, and Brigadier Matumbo is the Provincial Head for Vispol and will be leading the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Lieutenant General. Colleagues, can I check, is there any other guests joining us? Anybody from the Department of Community Safety?
Wayne Butler, Acting Director for Safety Promotion Partnerships.
Good morning, Mr. Butler. Can I now ask anybody else online to please introduce themselves? Member Kama, I see your hand.
No, good morning once again, Chair and members. I wanted to check if we're still having the report back from the MEC as stipulated in the program.
Okay, let's just finish with the introductions and then we'll get the agenda for today. Is that okay?
That's fine, Chair.
Perfect. I see Mr. Simelane, you can go ahead.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, members. Peggy Simelane from Department of Community Safety. We are sharing a laptop with Amanda due to technical problems. Thank you. Amanda Diesel.
Thank you. A very good morning to both of you. I see another hand as well, Mr. Lakhar.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Committee. Razak Lakar, Department of Community Safety.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And we are also joined by the Western Cape Provincial Parliament procedural staff, led by Mr. Ben Daza, and our extremely capable procedural officer, Mr. Wasi Matthews, as well as the support team and the technical team from the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Member Kama, just to answer your question, an amended meeting notice was sent out to indicate that we will only be focusing on the destruction of firearms in the province today. The Minister has tendered an apology for today's meeting because he is engaging with community members through a cabinet outreach program in the George area. So the Minister will come back at our next meeting to present his feedback on his first couple of days in office, and also to outline some of his core priorities. And we will add to that agenda as well later. But the focus for today is looking at the destruction of firearms in the province. As you remember, when Minister Allen was the chair, this was something that the committee engaged with, and correspondence between SAPS and the committee took place to understand this very complex process, because we know many of the guns that are used in the commission of crimes, especially violent crimes in this province, are guns that have in some cases sort of fallen out of police custody. And we're trying to get a better understanding of the process that is followed, and also what some of the possible solutions are to make sure that when a firearm is either confiscated or handed into SAPS, that firearm is then duly destroyed, and that it doesn't end up on the streets again. So with that background, I'm going to hand over to the team at SAPS for the presentation, and then we are going to then enter into a discussion after that. Is that agreeable with colleagues?
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Christians. Perfect. I now hand over to the South African Police Service.
Okay, we have sent the presentation to you. I thought we were going to fly it from that side, so that we can proceed. But then I'm not sure if can you fly the presentation that we sent to you.
Yes, we can do that. Let me just open that.
Chair, I can do it my side.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Wasim. I was going to try and figure it out on my side.
Whilst we were waiting for the chair, I think we in my introduction, as Damatum will be taking us through into the report, is the fact that we had been engaging with the MEC for what then was Community Safety, and Allen on these matters. That was a visual meeting that we had on this matter, but we would have loved also to have the firearm destruction in the Western Cape if everything can be met. But I would just hand over to Brigadier Matum to take us through with the presentation, which is not much. About some of the things that are very strict security, we did not put them in there. Over to you, Brigadier.
Thank you, General. Thank you, Chairperson. All protocol observed. As the General has mentioned, on the background, we received correspondence from the Western Cape Provincial Parliament on the 26th of February, requesting a virtual meeting to discuss the issue of the dedicated firearm destruction site in the Western Cape. And on the 15th of March, that meeting took place with the then Honourable Member of Parliament, Honourable MPP Regan Allen. During that meeting, we then informed him that the matter cannot be addressed at the provincial level and it to be escalated to the national office. And following that, there was correspondence that was received from Provincial Parliament on the 15th of July. And then the PC then responded to the letter outlining the process involved in the transportation of firearms to confiscated firearms section supply chain in Pretoria. Subsequent to that, we have received a correspondence dated the 8th of August that scheduled the meeting for today. The correspondence was received from the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Community Safety and Cultural Affairs, including sport. So there were items that were listed on the presentation. One was to explain the destruction of firearm process in the Western Cape. And the second one was to explain the specific and security protocols that are followed. And those security protocols cannot be disclosed due to extremely high risk that is involved. And the third one was to provide progress on the establishment of a destruction site in the Western Cape. And the fourth one was the impact on provincial resources to transport firearms and ammunition to Pretoria. Now I'm going to get into the process that we followed with regards to the destruction site. There were premises that were identified before and which we also had to visit recently, which were previously utilized for this purpose. And the first one is ArcelorMittal in Saldanha. That one has closed. The company cited that they had financial problems during COVID and they subsequently closed. And the second one is in Atlantis Foundry. The facility cannot accommodate subs with our recent engagement with them. And the third one is SA Metal, the one that is in the airport industrial in Bishop Lavis. The premises upon our inspection are not suitable and the company is not interested in assisting. The fourth one is Cisco in Kels River. This company was previously used and it poses a security risk to the organization. Therefore, the services had to be terminated due to its high risk. And also there are issues around legal requirements, operational procedures that could not be complied with by the company. So those are the four premises that we visited that were previously used by SAPS. Now, getting into the establishment of the destruction site in the Western Cape. Due to budgetary constraints, the province cannot afford to build its own facility, and the maintenance of the facility has its own extreme high budgetary constraint. The committee would recall that the process is involving melting the firearms, so it's very costly in that regard. And moving on to the impact on provincial resources to transport firearms and ammunition to Pretoria. Due to the sensitive nature of the process, the issue remains highly confidential. Thank you, General.
Thank you, Chair. That's what we could to respond to the questions that you've asked us. But also, I must say upfront, even the one that we're using nationally is a privately owned. The remains that are when these metals are melted, we don't take that. They use that for profiting, and it's quite a substantial amount that gain that they do. So on our engagement with the National Commission, in principle, we would like to have that, but if the company can meet all the requirements themselves, then we will be gladly to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, colleagues. It is interesting that the private sector keeps the profits of the materials once it's been smelted. I think what we should also note for future reference, if there's anything that needs to be discussed confidentially, this committee can also meet in committee, and we can meet in person in the chambers, and we don't need to broadcast that meeting. So in future, if there's anything confidential, our rules do allow for us to have confidential meetings, and members of this committee will then respect that confidentiality, because we don't want to put any operational protocols at risk. So colleagues, I'm now going to open up for questions. As you heard, this is quite a complex issue. The presentation is short because there's a lot of things that cannot be said, but we'll have a discussion, and we can also address some of the other things during our deliberations part. I see Member Christians. Member Christian seems to have just disappeared there for a second.
So, sorry, Chair, it went on mute again. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Brigadier, and thank you for allowing us just to ask a couple of questions. Chair, we are back at square one because we had quite a debate in the chamber about this. And as you say, you know, we are not now better off after this presentation because of course, everything being confidential. Just, and I don't know, now the questions also now, you know, it's going to be difficult, and maybe we will have to have a meeting in camera because, you know, this was the discussions in the chamber. What I want to know is, I believe that the information that we have at our disposal is that firearms is only taken twice a year to Pretoria. And we are worried that some of these firearms don't get to Pretoria. So I don't know how confidential it is, but how many firearms are stolen? How many firearms does not get to Pretoria? It's a crucial question for us, because we know previously that guns, just in the paper not so long ago, you get police stations being robbed and firearms being stolen. And so that's firearms on the street. And like we said, we visited sites and we know that those firearms are used in the execution of crime. So there's a lot of questions about how safe is it for our firearms to leave Cape Town and to go to Pretoria? Is that not a high risk? Is that not high risk as to, and I heard what the Brigadier said, it's very costly having, they looked at the 4 sites and not all is suitable. But for me, it's a safety issue, and we don't know how safe it is, and that's why I know they cannot disclose that information. But that is still, is the money and the resources more important than the safety of taking firearms up? You take the one, we need one at a local level, a disposal site at the local here in the province. Secondly, is there not a higher risk taking the firearms to Pretoria? And that for me is a major, major concern. So, Chair, I propose, and maybe we can just put it down, that we have another meeting that's in camera, because the presentation, because of confidentiality and security reasons, of course, the SAPS could not share the information with us, but I am very unclear of what the processes are, and I think we are back to square level 1, and I'm not very happy that we cannot be given the information that is required. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Christians. Member Bartman.
Thank you, Chair. I echo the request by Member Christians for us to have an in-camera session in order to delve into some of the detail of the particular presentation. I also would like to request that when we do such a in-camera session, that we receive information on how many hands do these firearms go through before it is destroyed. While I'm by far not an expert in security, in logistics, the longer the process is from point A to point B, naturally it increases risks along the transport route. So if we could have the detail then in that presentation of how the logistic route looks like and what the operations on that logistic route looks like before it gets to destruction. Because also if you are smelting firearms twice a year, my assumption is that you're waiting for bulk. And in terms of bulk transport, it also becomes a higher risk type of operation. So if that type of information could then also be provided to us, as well as finally just in the presentation, some of the companies seem to be reluctant to assist. And I don't know if there are any particular reasons that those companies might be reluctant to assist, but perhaps if we could get some of that information as well so that we can see where the bottlenecks are that we can assist with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Bartman. And just to round off that a round of questions, Brigadier, if you could perhaps tell us, besides using these facilities, has SAPS explored on-site destruction, so where a service provider comes to a specific police station or a specific depot and does the destruction there using sort of a chemical process? Has that been explored? And then maybe also, we know that SAPS is under severe pressure, and we know that your operations are structured in a very peculiar way where decisions are made in a central way. So maybe let's take advantage of the fact that MEC Allen is not here and perhaps outline if there's anything that we can push for from the Western Cape Department of Community Safety. So if it's a budgetary issue, Is there anything that we can do to lobby the political heads in this province as well to perhaps also assist with that, like we've done with the LEAP program? Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I think firstly, let's say we've been transporting these guns for years. Check and balances are put in place when we do that. As to how many times we take them, they are unable to inform you on that one, because that is the gist of the security matter that we've got to make sure that we keep that. But we have not lost any firearm as we've been doing all these years. From the point of the taking them to the point where they are placed for destruction in Pretoria. So that's one. Two, the issue of we are willing to come and explain the confidential things that we can do. But I want to say it up front. In some of the meetings, but it is not in this province, but somewhere in some of the committees, or a question to Parliament was asked, how many firearms that a specific patient had during the day or any other time. And then honestly, people were answering the questions, and that station within that month was robbed. So once we are honest with many things, especially when it comes to security, there are security risks that we must take into consideration in those matters. Now, coming to how many firearms do we have to take through? Even if we go to in an internal meeting, we will tell you, but in confidence, how many firearms do we normally transport? But it's not once, it's not twice, it's not thrice. It could be more than that we do. Now, if we ask, is there anything that we can do, or you can do to assist the companies to assist us? If they are not interested, perhaps you could convince them to assist. And on our side, we don't know why they are not interested. With the exception of this one, Cisco. If Cisco can just meet all the requirements, we could go there anytime. Because we have indicated, in our national commissioner had indicated that he is willing to consider that we do it locally, which is also will be much easier for us to do. Now, whether there can be any place that the government of Western Cape can build for that purpose, anything is possible. And as long as it's going to assist us to match the guns, we have no objection to that one. Now, coming to the issue of the destruction of firearms at police station on site, has that been employed? The answer is no. Because the process of melting the firearm itself in the melt house, it's a huge process. I don't know how you could do it at the police station using chemicals and that. Perhaps if somebody could school us on that and look at it, maybe it's one option that we could go through and look at it if that is practically possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for those rounded responses. Members, are there any other questions from your side? Member Bartman, you may go ahead while I look for other hands.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I wanted to find out. It was indicated that if there is someone to show us how to do it, I'm not sure if I heard correctly, at the police station or with a certain process, then perhaps we should try and find out. And again, I'm not an expert on the matter, but perhaps through you, Chair, and the committee procedural officer with the SAPS and community safety political heads, perhaps if they know who the experts are or the persons who have expertise in this type of matter, if they could perhaps join us at that next meeting in order to tell us what that process then in the making, in this and destruction of a gun looks like, so that from a more scientific perspective, we also know what goes into that. And I think for me, it would be helpful, because if I know what that particular scientific process is, perhaps we might get closer to why some of the companies may be a bit hesitant to take on the assistance in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Christians.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for those responses. I was very pleased with the answer from the General, saying that not one firearm got lost or stolen in the transportation of the firearms to Pretoria. Now, we will then get more details about that, but that it seems to me at the moment that system is secure and that system is working, and then a person will have to look at cost and resources. So, you know, that details a person can get later. But the other thing, Chair, that I want to maybe suggest is why not have a separate site meeting and as a committee, we go to Cisco in Curls River and get all the facts first, and then we go maybe to have an on-site meeting there just to explore. Having all the relevant details as requested before the time, I think that will assist us greatly. But even, you know, if we meet with SAPS, also just to see, I was just encouraged by the fact that no weapon for all the years, I don't know how many years, was stolen or lost. So at the moment, that system to me is then secure. And then looking at a site in the Western Cape, as the Brigadier has said, we will have to look at cost. You know, if you have a system working and it's not broken, you don't have to fix it, and it's not that great a need. But it may be a good thing just to explore and look at the different possibilities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Christians. Oh, I see Member Kama is there as well. I was wondering what happened to Member Kama. I thought you might still be upset about the MTN 8 draw. Member Kama, over to you.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I don't necessarily have a question, Chair, but was going to, because I'm worried now that I might also have some recommendations for resolutions. Now I see members are now entering into that more than asking the question. So I just wanted to get guidance from you so that we are advised to use that opportunity which rises on the actions and resolutions of the committee for us to do so. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Member Kama. Yes, I think we can. Colleagues, with your indulgence, what I propose we do is we release our colleagues from the South African Police Service, and then we move into our discussion. And one of those points of discussion will be a follow-up meeting in person, in committee as well, where we get a deeper understanding into the confidential aspects, but also bearing in mind that we will respect the confidentiality of that information, because it does have an operational impact. Are you all in agreement with that?
Yes. In order, Chair.
We must not release them from the South African Police Service, but rather from this meeting.
Yes, no, we don't have any power or authority to release anybody from the South African Police Service. But what I will do then, members, I'm going to hand over to General Patekile if there's any closing remarks that you'd like to make, and then we'll release you and your colleagues, and we will follow up with you about an in-person meeting where we can further delve into this, and we'll also have Minister Allen with us then as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and honorable members. I just also wish that we could have a destruction site in the Western Cape, and I think the new National Commission is in favor of that. We would calculate, as you asked, the costs of us going up and all that. If that is wanted, we can provide it per year how we are spending to get those guns up there. But also the issue that the firearms that they landed up here from were supposed to have been destruction. Those firearms they landed up here, but from the destruction point in Cape Town, in Gauteng, not because they were here in the Western Cape. And we know that there was a candidate that was found guilty on that one, who was responsible for safekeeping of those guns. So it's not a question that it's the firearms are lost at the provincial level. They were lost at where the center point where they were kept. So I think that I wanted to make clear that it's not at the provincial level that has happened. It was that member who was also subsequent and was found guilty and sentenced into jail and is now, I don't know if he's out on patrol, but there's on parole. But that investigation on other parts is still continuing elsewhere or on the number of incidents pertaining to the storage where it was kept in Vanderbijlpark. We are really wanting to be assisted on that. And if we could have the provincial government building that smart house, because the matter that are produced by melting those guns is quite absolutely huge. And it could also maybe mean that it's turned into profit that could be used for rehabilitation centers or building, orphanage homes and things that could assist to plant back that money to the community where it comes from. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Major General. I do agree with you. I think if we can find a provincial solution that will assist in making sure that the destruction takes place here and that the resources then come back into the provincial police coffers as well. So with that, General, thank you very much for your time this morning. We will invite you for a follow-up in-person meeting, and we will make sure that we've got some good coffee there as well, so colleagues can interact as well. And with that, you are free to go about the rest of your day. I'm sure you're very busy. And our colleagues from community safety as well, you are more than welcome to also carry on with your day. Thank you very much. Members, we're just going to give 2 to 3 minutes for people to exit the meeting, and then we will continue. Colleagues, I see that sort of everybody has exited there. Can we then move over into the discussion that Member Christian started on sort of the next step? So one of the proposals was an in-person committee meeting to discuss the confidential aspects of this. And then the second part of that was also inviting people that are involved in the destruction process to explain that to us. And maybe if I can add a third part to that, if we could get the WCPP's research unit to put a brief document together for us on what the international best practice is on the destruction of firearms and the cost associated with that.
Support.
And then
Supported.
Thank you very much. Member Christians also proposed that we visit the site and engage with the company, the Kelsriver site, which I don't think it's a bad idea. We can do that. It is a new company has taken over that site. It's now run by a Turkish company in partnership with the African Development Bank, if I'm not mistaken. So we can do that. Colleague, can I also propose, I'm not sure how what the appetite for this is, but would you be interested to actually go and see the national destruction site in Pretoria? Because I'm slightly alarmed that none of the firearms are going missing in the province, but they went missing from that site. So would colleagues be interested to conduct a little study tour to the Pretoria site?
Support.
Agreed. Yeah, Chair, I don't think it's a problem. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good support, that idea. Thank you.
Perfect. We can see whether we can do the firearm destruction site in Pretoria as well as the National Forensics Lab. Could kill two birds with one stone. Are there any other items, resolution points, or any items for discussion that members would like to table? Member Bartman, you may go ahead.
Chair, I wanted to find out when we do the P&P reports, do SAPs ever come with community safety to the committee to also provide feedback on those implementation? I'm not sure how it usually works. I've only been in, I think, one P&P meeting, but I think it might be useful for us that if we're working so close with SAPs, that then both the department and SAPs is able to then speak to us about the implementation of the respective reports. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Christians?
Chair, just to come back to our discussion, I think there were the three sites that did not want to, the one in Saldanha, Atlantis, that were not interested in the confiscation of the weapons. But Cisco, according to the SAPs in Kuils River, they did not meet all the requirements. That's why they were not awarded that destruction of firearms. If and maybe that is what you said, if we can also get that part of the research so that we know, why did they not meet all the requirements and why are the other companies not interested? Because in the end, I just heard General Patekele says that they would want a destruction site in the Western Cape. So they also want that. So maybe, if I don't know, I think that can be part of the research, and then we're better informed going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Member Christians. We can definitely include that in the research brief as well. Member Bartman, to respond to your question, so what we normally get from the South African Police Service is a policing resource plan for the province. The only thing I remember from once the province has submitted the policing needs and priorities submission to SAPS, the only thing that I've ever heard is that the report is noted. So what we can do is we can invite the South African Police Service to present to us how they've incorporated the policing needs and priorities from province into the policing needs in the provincial, the province of the Western Cape, and then maybe also a presentation from SAPS on how they've allocated resources in the province and how that speaks to the PNP, and then also what the SAPS organizational structure is in the province. I heard yesterday that SAPS is now adopting a district model approach, so maybe we can then ask them to present that to us as well, and we can maybe couple those two together for our next meeting when the MEC presents sort of a review of what he's done as well and what his plans are. Would that be in order?
Support.
Order, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any other resolutions specifically with these firearm destruction issue as well as the policing needs and priorities and the structure of SAPS?
Chair, I've got something else. It's not the same, but I'll first allow that and then I'll just say something else.
No, you may go ahead, Member Christians.
No, Chair, just I don't know if you saw in the papers. I just saw in the papers about the LEAP officers arresting more than 500, perpetrators. I think that the LEAP officer thing is definitely working in communities. You know, what I would like us to maybe do is the LEAP officers assisting greatly with SAPs, and maybe just to see how that structure works, because when they go into communities, they work you know, under the authority of SAPs and all of that. Maybe as a committee, we need to see how that works in when, I know we had the LEAP officer thing, but just how do they work together, SAPs and the, because SAPs don't have the numbers now. It's almost like a force multiplier. You get the LEAP officers and stuff in. How does that actually work on the ground? I would like to see how that operation works, and because if they arrested more than 500 perpetrators over a short period of time, there's some success, and maybe we as a committee need to know how, you know, that success rollout. For me, that's important. I know we had, you know, the presentation to say how they allocated to different areas, but I still don't know how all the law enforcement agencies work together. I know they have the different, you know, meeting spots and all of that, but I would like to know how does that work, and the reduction of crime for me is an important thing, and there's success stories in that. So as a committee, maybe we need to be briefed, and you know, it's working at the moment. So for me, that's a very, very good way just to know how they're working. Thank you, Chair.
I agree with you. I was very fortunate. I was invited by the Executive Mayor of Cape Town to attend the deployment of the 1,100 new LEAP officers in Bishop Lavis on the 11th of August. So with that was myself from Parliament, and we also had SAPs there as well. And they had a little sort of display of what LEAP is able to do. And they also have now launched a LEAP base in Bishop Lavis. So maybe what we can do is when we go to the firearm destruction site in Kuilsrivier, we can also include on that day a visit to the LEAP base in Bishop Lavis or one of the other bases to get an understanding of how it works in sort of the community, and also to get some understanding of how that command and control coordination works at a operational level as well. So we've now seen what the PowerPoint presentation says, but I like, Member Christian's, your idea of actually going to see it in action, because they launched 100 LEAP officers in the CBD last week as well. And this past weekend, they've made 15 arrests, and they've confiscated something like 25 firearms, etc. So there is an impact, and I think it would be useful to see how that works. So Wasim, if we could add that as well to our program. Colleagues, I'm also just, Wasim, I might be putting you on the spot here, but would it be possible for us to just share our committee program on the screen now? Or do you need some time just to add all of the new things to it as well?
Just give me a second to open it, please.
So members, what I'm going to suggest is once Wasim has sort of added some of these new meetings that we've just spoken about, he will email the draft committee program to everybody. And I'd like some input from members in terms of anything that you think is not there, or anything that you think we should be focusing on, where sort of a specific focus needs to be placed. And then also we've got an upcoming cluster visit to the Plettenberg Bay area. So we've started populating that program. And I know one of the items that that's been long outstanding is we wanted to have a look at the K9 unit in Mossel Bay. And I've spoken to the executive mayor of Mossel Bay, and I don't think that they're going to have that site up and ready by September. So I've suggested that we visit their new joint operations center in Mossel Bay during that oversight visit as well. But if there are any other sort of specific programs and projects for comm safety or cultural affairs and sports that you think we should be looking at in the Plettenberg Bay area, please do let us know as well. Let's see. Okay, it's going to be, Wasim, I think it's going to be too small for us to read on our screens. I can't even read with my glasses on. But what we can do is we will, Wasim will circulate this once he's cleaned it up. And then if members can just have a look at what's on there and also highlight things that should be on there so we can just update our plan as well. Because we were asked to submit business plans to the parliamentary, to the chairperson's forum. That obviously didn't take into account all the things that members would like to do as well. So I'd like to update that. Would that be in order with colleagues?
In order, Chair.
Perfect. Members,
In order.
Is there anything else that we need to discuss that I've maybe missed?
No, Chair, nothing else.
Perfect. Then thank you very much for your time this morning. So as an immediate follow-up to this, we will set up a meeting with SAPS in person to discuss the confidential aspects of the firearm destruction process and to get a better understanding of what could be done. And we'll ask the MEC to also perhaps be part of that discussion and see where the province can assist. And then we will send out the draft committee program for input by members. And Wasim, you can attach a deadline to that as well. We've got a nice group, so we don't take as long as some of the other committees to respond. So that will be fairly quick. And then that leaves sort of the end of this meeting. Wasim, our next meeting is when?
Chairperson will have to check the parliamentary program because the week of the 13th of September has been given for the delegation that's visiting provincial parliament. After that, I think we're headed towards annual report. There's also, there was a date that you and I discussed, but the MEC is not available on that date either. That's the 21st of September. So we will have to find a date for him to do the report back on his, it's not even first 100 days, it's a bit longer than that now. So we need to find a slot. It might mean that we will need permission from, or you'd have to request a slot from the chief whip, because we have every second week, and I think after the week of the 13th, 2 weeks later, it's probably headed towards constituency and annual report. I don't have the program in front of me, but I know there are not a lot of allocated meeting dates left. Anything would have to then just be requested, and we check the program to see which days are free for the members.
We also do have the chairperson of education has just raised her hand. I'm sure they'd be happy to give up a meeting slot in aid of community safety in the province. Honorable Bartman.
You want Member Kama to be upset with me? I actually wanted to say I also had to move the education slot from 13th September because the 14th is obviously the by-election in rural areas, and then that rule from programming kicks in regarding by-elections in rural areas. My advice, Chair, is I don't mind if I know after the cluster visit, there is a constituency period of 2 weeks. And I know that obviously we don't want to sit in constituency periods, but if the particular session is going to be a closed session anyway, then it might assist us to ask for one of the dates in the constituency period before the annual report sessions start. Because if we are able to then just conclude some of the more immediate topics, then it might also assist us with the annual report period will be right after that constituency period, especially because we have, including myself, a number of new members on this committee. Thank you.
Perfect. Now, Wasim and I will find a suitable date, and we might ask you to sacrifice some of your precious constituency time. But just another note for the cultural affairs and sports component of this meeting, we will be going to Robben Island on the 17th of October. So just so members are aware of that. That will be a visit to Robben Island, weather permitting, and with Katoa, hopefully we'll be able to transport us to Robben Island for our fact-finding mission. So colleagues, with that, thank you very much for your time this morning. I really do appreciate it. And we will be in touch with regards to the next meeting, but Wasim will send out our draft program, and we look forward to receiving feedback. Have a wonderful morning and enjoy the day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.